Welcome to episode 171 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Liberman, and today I'm really excited to talk with you about how to make the most of your professional events. So when you're attending events, either as a speaker or as an attendee, or maybe not even as an attendee where you're just attending the event to meet people who are there. Today, I want to share with you the framework, the recipe, the playbook for you to make the most of the time and money that you're spending to go to that event. Whether it's virtual or in person or some form of a hybrid, that's what today's episode is all about. And I'm really excited to share with you. You'll hear it kind of toward the middle of the episode, but a really interesting approach that several consultants that I know have taken to make the most of their professional events. And it might be surprising to you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser to listen to the episode because it's a great way. Attending professional events is such a great way to continue to build your reputation in your industry, to meet potential buyers, consulting buyers, potential clients, potential referrers or potential collaborators, potential channels. Such a great place to meet so many people at one time. And so that's why I want to focus today's episode on this topic so that you can start thinking about this as a strategy for yourself with lead generation and ultimately as part of your overall strategy for business development. So with that, let's just start off and kick off this episode. The other reason why I was thinking about this topic is that I've got so many independent consulting clients who are attending events in the next several months and planning for events in the fall. And a lot of times I get the question from them, is this going to be worth my time? Is this going to be worth my investment? Do you think, Melisa, that I should focus on going to this event or use my time and money elsewhere from a business development perspective? And so today I want to help you really think about whether or not attending events is something you want to include in your business development strategy as a business owner, and assuming you do in some form or fashion, how to make the most out of that investment. It might not cost you anything to go to a certain event, especially if, let's say, it's an online type of an event or a very low ticket price for those types of events, but it certainly costs you time. And so even if it's not a large investment where you're buying a higher conference ticket type of a price, and then you've got travel on top of it, even if it's something that's virtual, that's lower cost in terms of financial outlay, you certainly have time that you're dedicating toward this event. And I want to make sure that I help you make the most of it today. So that's what we're going to be really diving into, so that ultimately by the end of this episode, you've got a really strong framework to increase your return on investment and increase your return on time as it relates to attending professional events. And as I already teased here a little bit, I'm going to be sharing one really surprising tactic that will help you save money on events. And so you want to be listening for that toward the middle of the episode. So with that, let's dive in. We're going to focus on return on investment driven event and networking strategies for your independent consulting business today. So the agenda for our episode is, number one, we're going to dive right in and talk about 3 ways to prepare for an event. Then we'll talk about 3 strategies that you can use to make the most of the event itself. And then we'll wrap up today with 3 things to do after the event to, again, make sure that you're making the most out of the time and money that you've taken as an investment to involve yourself in the event in the first place. So that's what we're focused on here today. And that's the layout of the episode. Before we get into the first part of the agenda, I want to encourage you to go download the book if you haven't already. It's called Grow Your Consulting Business, the 14-step roadmap to make your independent consulting goals a reality. And in chapter 9, I focus that entire chapter on your lead generation system to uncover high quality opportunities. And certainly attending events, speaking at events, those are all part of your potential lead generation strategy. especially as you are evolving your business and wanting to become more known for and sought after for what you do. So with that, let's first talk about just what I typically see happens with attending events or signing up for an event with your consulting business. And this might sound familiar to you. You sign up for an event and you have great intentions for preparing. You might have decide that you want to schedule some people to meet with in advance, especially if you're going in person. You might be wanting to schedule some lunches or coffees with people you already know to reconnect with them. You might have great intentions to review the attendee list if you have access to that in advance and connect with people in advance and meet them in advance. There are so many great tools out there today that event organizers very commonly use to create some kind of community or connections before the event ever starts. So you may have some intention to log into that and start connecting with people through that tool, as well as through LinkedIn, and just making an overall game plan for the event. Those might be your intentions. That's where oftentimes intentions that I see for independent consultants, we always have a really good idea of what we want to do, but then we run out of time and we end up getting on the plane and kind of winging it, or even just, if it's a webinar or an online type of an event, just really going to those sessions when you can fit them in, maybe missing a lot of sessions that you had planned to attend, missing some of the networking opportunities that are included with those types of events. And you end up just winging it and promising yourself that you'll do your best to follow up with people that you've met. Then you run out of time for that. And you end up not really building and cultivating the relationships that you created while you were at that event. And all of it leads to some form of a lost opportunity for you to build leads and referrals, and also a situation where you are really criticizing yourself for not having allocated more time up front to plan ahead, or allocating more time afterward to follow up on all of those relationships that you started. And so it becomes kind of that double whammy where you're frustrated with yourself for losing out on the opportunity, and then also frustrated with yourself for not following through the way that you had planned to. I want to make sure that I help you avoid that today. And it really breaks down into 3 very simple steps to help you make a plan for preparing, attending, and facilitating the post-event. So those 3 stages: preparing, attending, and the post-event, so that ultimately you can maximize that return on your time and that return on your investment, and ultimately make the most of the opportunity that that event affords you. Again, whether it's in person or online. So let's start with the pre-event. The pre-event. And this is something that I often see consultants overlook. You might be planning ahead. Of course, if it's in person, you would be planning ahead with your logistics. You might even do a good job at scheduling a few coffee dates or lunch dates with people that you know who will be at the event. But one of the things that is incredibly important that I often see consultants overlooking, whether it's a big event that you're attending, or even a kind of a mixer, a networking type mixer, or something online, the big thing that I see consultants often overlooking is establishing your goals in a very explicit way. So that's a first strategy that I want to share with you when it comes to the pre-event phase here, is that we really want to set specific goals for the event that you're attending. Again, even if it doesn't cost you any money, it's certainly costing you time. And so you want to make sure that you've got some really specific intentions for the event so that you can maximize your return on that event. And also so that you've got a good baseline against which you can evaluate the results afterward. So let me give you some examples. Some goals for an event might be: how many people do you want to collect information from, contact information from? You might set a goal to collect contact information, whether that's a business card or a virtual business card or a new LinkedIn connection, from 30 new contacts, as an example. Set a goal, a very specific goal about what the quantities would be. Another example, you might set a goal to reconnect with 20 people who you already know and create that very specific intention. You might also set a goal to schedule so many follow-on meetings after the event. So you might set a goal to say, okay, I'm going to connect with 30 new people. I'm going to reconnect with 15 people that I already know to further deepen that relationship. And I'm going to schedule 10 follow-on meetings while I'm there. Very specific. Very specific. Now, notice in this example I just gave you, I didn't include that you've created X number of leads. You might be at a place in your business and attending these types of events where it makes really good sense for you to set a goal of creating a certain number of leads at that particular event. But for a lot of us who are newer going to events and leveraging events as a business development strategy, a lot of times that can backfire to set a goal to create a certain number of leads, because then we feel pressured. Then we feel like we have to direct conversations in a very specific way when we meet new people, and we come across in a very much more salesy type of a way, rather than setting a goal to go create relationships and further existing relationships and schedule follow-on meetings where you don't know if there's an opportunity or not, where you're just really creating that momentum for yourself. So that's why I say, depending on where you're at in the trajectory of your business, it may not make sense to set a goal to create a certain number of leads at an event, but it can certainly be really productive for you to think about how many people do you want to meet and exchange contact information, and ultimately how many follow-on networking type meetings do you want to schedule, so that then you can take those meetings and go through your sales process in terms of qualifying them as a potential client or a potential connector, potential referrer, and move through your business development process from there. So that's the first key here, is when you're thinking about the event, what do you want to come back from the event with in a very tangible way, and writing that down and overcoming the but Melissa scenario that you might be thinking right now. But Melissa, I don't have control over people agreeing to meet with me, or I don't know how many people are even going to be at this event. How would I know what's a good number to choose? Or, but Melissa, I hate these events. I'm not good at them. So this is not something that I feel like I could even set a number. It's a big enough thing that I'm actually going. Or I don't want to get into this kind of an approach because people are going to think that I'm trying to sell them something. Those are commonly the pushback that I get when I start working with consultants on setting a specific goal. And for you, the reason why we're setting a goal is not for you to treat this in a transactional way, but simply for you to have a specific target for you to work toward, and also a good baseline for you to evaluate against to see, did you underestimate what you were capable of? And therefore, at the next event, you could set the number higher. Or did you fall short of the number that you set? And why would that be? And what could you adjust for yourself moving forward to hit the goals? Again, it's for you to have something to measure against versus something that you feel pressured to make happen and therefore end up showing up kind of in a weird way at the event itself. Okay, the other thing that I want to really emphasize here as we're thinking about that pre-event phase of the event planning strategy to maximize your return on time, return on investment of these types of professional events. The other thing that I want to really focus in on here for you is that once you've set these goals and have a specific intention, then you're going to want to take that the next step, which is to create a solid plan for yourself. What is your best guess of how you're going to hit these goals? If you have a goal of exchanging 30 contact information with 30 people, for example, what would be the best way that you imagine that might happen? It might be that you decide that you're going to go down into the lobby for an hour early each morning, hang out around where people buy coffee, around the coffee shop, and meet people that are sitting there drinking their coffee and get to know them in that way. Or it might be that you imagine yourself in the chat of a virtual event, really contributing to whatever the speaker is sharing and meeting people and exchanging information there. Really get into the clear picture of how you're going to bring those goals to life so that you have a solid plan. And then also you want to Think about, for example, if you set a goal to have a certain number of follow-up conversations after the event, it's incredibly important to make it easy for that to happen. So think about even blocking off time when you get back from the event for you to go through all of that contact information, for you to connect with them, reach out to them, schedule some time with them if you hadn't already at the event. You may even want to make it easy for those people to schedule time with you while you're at the event by setting up something like a QR code or a Calendly calendar for them to just go pick a time to make it as easy as possible for both of you to take that next step. So really take a step back and think about the events that you're investing in. Again, whether it's physically going to or virtually going to, or some form of a hybrid, think about what your plan is, what you want the outcome to be, write that down, and then figure out what's your best guess about how you're going to hit those numbers. Make it as easy as possible for other people to get on your calendar, and then ultimately to have conversations that will lead to you creating leads and a pipeline for yourself. So that's the pre-event. So a lot of intentionality around what you want to create as a result of the events that you have decided to put onto your business calendar as the business owner. Then we move into the event itself. And this is where I want to share a few examples with you of other consultants who have had some really effective and powerful results of going to events, again, virtual or in person. I'll share with you a couple of examples, but you want to go to that event really cognizant of your goals. Sometimes we write down goals and then we forget what they are. So you want to be really cognizant of whatever the goals were that when you had your business owner hat on, you decided you were going to accomplish a certain set of goals, and you want to make sure that you're really clear with yourself when you're at the events or even right before you walk into the event, what those goals were. So that's a first and foremost, have those at the top of your mind. And then you want to really create, as you're in the event itself, making sure that you're doing everything you can to reach those goals. So the first example is for a lot of consultants, especially if you're listening to this podcast, a lot of us are introverts in some form or fashion, where maybe you're not opposed to going to an event, but it's really draining for you. Or maybe you're even on the path where the situation where you just hate going to these events. You don't like talking to big groups of people. You would rather talk to people one-on-one. And so you might get yourself to sign up for the event, but then you end up hiding in the bathroom or just sitting in listening to lectures, thinking you're accomplishing something by consuming a lot of information versus really focusing in on meeting people. And the first tactic that I want to share with you around this is really going into this from a curiosity driven perspective versus a feeling of being pressured. I was working with a consultant recently who was going to just a simple networking event. It was more of a mixer type of a situation. There were a lot of people that she knew there already, as well as other people she wanted to meet and would be introduced to these people. It was a fairly low pressure scenario in the grand scheme of things, but she was just really already noticing that she was worried she was going to go there and kind of hide. And so we worked together to create the mindset, the event mindset for her. How did she want to go in there feeling? Was it feeling awkward? Was it feeling pressured? Was it feeling incompetent? And of course, those were not the answers. And so as we really were working through her event mindset, what landed for her was, you know what, if I go in there with really just a feeling of curiosity, fueled by the idea and the thought of, I'm really interested to know and meet all who is here and see where this goes. That was her thought process. I'm just interested to meet people. My goal is to meet at least 10 and to get to know them. And that created a lot more curiosity for her, which took down a lot of the pressure and the worry about feeling awkward and allowed her to be like she would be with more of a personal social setting, which is just asking a lot of great questions and listening. And that's it. Very simple plan. Listen and feel curious. And for her, I think she ended up coming back with 15 or 20, double what her goal was, because she just went in with a very intentional event mindset and emotional state in order to set herself up for success. So for you, think about it. How do you typically feel when you're going into an event? Is it feeling worried or awkward or nervous about interacting with new people in a larger setting? Whatever it is, or maybe you feel indifferent because it's an online type of an event. Really, first and foremost, think about your mindset and your emotional state and create a very purposeful one that in your mind will best set you up to reach the goals that you've set. Then the next example, and this is what I was teasing you here at the beginning of the episode, the next thing that you might even consider doing is going to the event, not even buying a ticket, and sitting in the lobby and meeting as many people as you can at the elevators, at the bar, at the coffee shop, at the restaurant, whatever it is. I've had multiple independent consultants who I work with take this approach, and it's worked out so well for them. Sometimes the tickets are $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it is. You're saving that money, and you're not feeling like you need to go sit in the lectures where you're not able to meet people because you're listening to the panel or the speaker. So you're not feeling like you're spending all of that money and then you should go listen to all of the speakers because that's what you paid the money for. You just bypass all of that, go to the event, meet people in the lobby, meet people at the elevator, meet people at the coffee shop, schedule some lunches, and come away with a lot of new relationships as a result of that. You would be surprised at how effective that is as a strategy, and one that's very cost effective as well. And then the third component here is making sure that you're striking while the iron is hot. When you meet someone or you meet up with someone that you already know, really focusing in on building that relationship and having some simple next step that you might recommend to them, such as, hey, it was great to get to know you. I have a few ideas of how we might be able to help each other moving forward. Are you open to scheduling some time now? Let's hop on each other's calendars, because I know once we get home, life and business get in the way, and sometimes those things fall to the wayside. So you're recommending to them a next step, and you're getting that on the calendar so that you're striking while the iron's hot. Another example that works really well for other independent consultants like you is to offer to people that you're meeting, of course, in the right context, but offering to people that you're meeting that potentially could be good clients or referrers or channels, some form of a next step that's a very mini offer, as I've called this on the podcast on previous episodes, or an entry type of an offer, an open the door type of an offer. For example, you might say, hey, listen, as we got to know each other here, you were mentioning this particular challenge. That's something that I often see with my corporate clients. And I have a diagnostic process that I like to walk them through just to help them better understand the challenges that they're facing and uncover their blind spots. And at the end, I give you a diagnostic assessment that you can then take to fold into your planning, that kind of thing. Think about what an open the door type offering would be for you, so that then that helps to take the conversation with them to the next level. You're giving them something really valuable that they're interested in taking you up on, and you're not just simply asking for a call for the sake of having a call. That can be another really impactful way to make the most of the people that you're meeting at events. So think about what it looks like for you to strike while the iron's hot, to get people you're meeting onto your calendar while you're at the event, whether it's in person, like I just described, or maybe even in the chat if you're on a virtual type of an event. And also think about the type of people you're meeting. It might be other people who are attending the conference. It might be people who are running a booth. It might be people who are speakers, or even the event organizers. What might be a good open the door offer for each one of those categories of people, so that you've got something really ready and powerful to recommend to them as a next step, versus just saying, oh, it was really nice to meet you. Let's keep in touch. It was really nice to meet you. Let's keep in touch is not going to help you to move things forward. So you want to have something that just rolls off your tongue, that gives them something valuable as a next step that they would be excited to say yes to. So really think about that as you are moving forward into planning for and then ultimately attending the event. Okay, now let's talk about after the event. After the event. And this happens, I would have to say, most of the time. Unfortunately, it happens more often than not, where after the event, we all come home or we log off of the event and we've got a pile of things that we've got to do, especially for clients. And we end up letting that take the priority. And then days go by and weeks go by, months go by, and we haven't followed up with the people that we've met. And we end up then feeling like, oh, it's too late. And so we just throw it away and we tell ourselves we'll do better next time. I was working with an independent consultant who told me that he had met someone who was interested in his services. And when he got home, he didn't follow up with them. And he kept kicking the can down the street, as they say. And ultimately, it was 1 year later. And he realized, I still haven't followed up with that person. He ended up following up with that person, and it ended up creating a contract with that company. But certainly, you don't want to wait a whole year, or even more commonly, never follow up with those people. You want to really make sure that this is where the rubber hits the road, that you've taken advantage of the opportunity you gave yourself to attend that event, and that you are following up with the people that you've met. And you don't need me to tell you this, you know this already. But the fact of the matter is, and I want to normalize this, that this is something that doesn't happen very often. Or perhaps you do follow up and they don't reply and you just kind of leave it at that. And so I want to really encourage you to set a goal to say, you know what? I'm going to make this a different event this time, the next one that you go to, whether again, it's in person or virtually, and set aside the time in your calendar. And when you don't want to do it, because most likely you're not going to want to follow up with people, it's something that's uncomfortable and not as something that you're as familiar with, or is something you feel is in your comfort zone. And so you'll end up doing other things that are more comfortable or in your comfort zone. And so the first thing I want to say is set aside some time to follow up with the people you've met, even if it's 30 minutes a day for the 2 weeks following that event, until you've worked your way through that full list. And don't let yourself talk yourself out of it, if that's the best way to say it. Don't let yourself talk yourself out of it this time. Set an intention for yourself to say, you know what? I'm not going to want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want the feedback from this process. I want to be able to really get a good understanding of, if I meet 30 people at an event and I follow up with 25 of them afterward, how many of those create leads? So that you've got more inputs for yourself, for your business development formula. If you can't motivate yourself for any other reason than to say, you know what, I just want that data so that I have those inputs to refine my business development formula, as an example. So that's the first thing. After the event, set an intention and then follow through with those people that you've met. Even if you've never done it before, do it for the purposes of having those data points for yourself. Then the second thing you want to be doing is evaluating results against the goal that you set. In the example that we were talking about in the beginning of this episode, if you set a goal to follow up or to meet 30 people and reconnect with 20 and have meetings with 15, what were your results against that goal? Maybe you met 50 people. Why did you end up meeting 20 more people than you set the goal for? Or maybe you set a goal for 30 and you only ended up meeting 20. Why did you fall short of the goal? Don't make it because something about the event. Well, there weren't as many people at the event as I thought there would be, or I wasn't feeling good one day, or whatever the reason is. Don't make it about any of that. Ask yourself, even if that was true, what about this event and the way I showed up to the event and the way I was thinking led to the result that I got? And what might I shift in the future to hit the goal that I've set, even if fewer people are attending than what I expected? And then finally, fold those learnings back into what I like to call your event attendee process. Your event attendee process. Fold your learnings back so that you've ultimately got a playbook for the way that you make the most of the events that you choose to attend, whether you're investing financially to attend those events or it's an investment of your time to attend those events. Create a playbook for yourself so that ultimately you are able to maximize the return on time, the return on investment, and leverage events to fill your pipeline, which is entirely possible for you to go to one event a quarter and ultimately fill your pipeline through just that one simple activity, if you put in this type of intentional plan in place for yourself. All right, my friends. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to encourage you to go out and create one of these event plans for yourself and execute against it. And if this is something that you want support in doing to help you to see where your blind spots are so that you can create a more repeatable, predictable, reliable lead generation and business development process for you and your business, reach out and see if coaching would be a good fit for you. You can apply for a call on consultmelisa.com. There you'll see my calendar and you'll answer some questions that I share with you. And then ultimately we'll meet and on an exploratory call and see if we would be a good fit working together. So that's what I have for you today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melisaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.